separate permit for each of them. So, and that's an interpretation of the commission to make that decision of whether they consider it associated or not. Yeah, I think so. The other documents that Wells are going to hand out, so just to have the documentation, I had a suggested resolution. It's nothing, it's just basic. We noticed, we got these applications, we got some additional amendments. We noticed a hearing, we had the hearing, here's our recommendation, and here's our approval. What I think is important is that whatever you approve is clear. And so this document in front of you is the same thing as is on the chart, but just in your own ordinance, where it's basically blue lines of your entire ordinance, because I don't want there to be any confusion over what you ultimately adopt. So this is, I'm starting with what I've got in the chart. It's up to you guys to make your final decision, but I think it's whatever you adopt or don't adopt, or however you decide, I think it's important to be super clear about it.
Okay.
I have one question for you. So, this larger packet is what we have sitting on the table before us.
Yes.
And that's the one that was on the website and,
Yes.
and whatnot. This one that you handed out, there's more than just your amendments proposed in here though, isn't there? Is there some that was proposed by Ashley?
Yes. Yep. So
Okay.
I took the document that was on the website, and I agree it's hard because there's so many different inputs, and the goal was to make them align. And if I did anything that was different than Ashley's recommendations, those are the little blue and green comments.
And in here you included Ashley's recommendations.
Yes.
You didn't include the ones that I brought forward at the last meeting.
You're right, I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't include this. I will say there was one also, the other recommendation I didn't have in there was to add wind under the CUP section, and I think the problem with that is then you have this inconsistency of siting permits and CUPs. It's cleaner if you do it in its own section, because that's how you set up the ordinance.
And what you're talking about listing it in the CUP was basically your proposed amendment on December 26th that we got correspondence from, right?
That may have been the suggestion at the time when I'll be honest, I wasn't involved at that point in time. So when I got involved and looked at it as a whole, and for background, I've done quite a few ordinance amendments, helped with ordinance amendments in North Dakota. So I've seen the how they were put together, and I could tell this was set up as its own provision. And then when I listened to read through and listened to the comments that were made at one of the meetings about, oh, we should have just, like, one of Wells County, I think it is, added agricultural in the wind section. And I thought that seems the cleanest, because you've got a separate concept of siting permit and conditional use permit, and they're not quite lining up. This would be cleaner. So that was ultimately where I went. Yeah.
All right.
So in Burley County, I went through and I looked at a lot of different county zoning.
Yeah.
In Burley County, now their wind energy section and their zoning is quite a few more pages than what any county is. I'm thinking like 14 pages compared to ours about 4. But in Burley County, they have wind power facilities listed as conditionally permitted use. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, Burley County doesn't use the term conditionally permitted, they use special uses. Mm-hmm. So they got special uses there. I looked at some other counties that have wind generation facilities, and I think there was only one. Now, I didn't look at all 52, 53 counties in the state, but I think there was only one that I looked at out of about 9 that had it as a permitted use. All others were listing it as a conditionally permitted use.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, can you speak to kind of how that is? Because they have an article in Burley that deals with wind.
Yeah. And so in my mind, the reality is the siting permit and the CUP are the same thing. It's just when this got incorporated, it has its own concept of a siting permit. And I think maybe the idea was to align it with what the Public Service Commission does, which is they issue a certificate of site compatibility. So, I don't, conceptually in practice, I don't think they are different. But because the ordinance is set up separately, you either have to change everything to a conditional use permit, or change everything to a siting permit or some other type of permit. And originally, when we did this, we understood zoning commission was making all the decisions except for the wind one the county commission was making. If I put them together, at that time, it was going to create a problem because two different bodies were making the decision on the two different permits. So that's a lot of background, but ultimately the easiest, simplest way was to make siting permit, which is the equivalent of a conditional use permit, just a separate section, and keep it separate, but then incorporate it into zoning commission makes a recommendation on siting permits, just like it does a conditional use permit. County commission makes a decision on siting permits, just like it does on conditional use permits.
So then in the siting permit, that the zoning board, if all of this stuff happens, the zoning board would make a recommendation on the siting permit.
Yeah.
The county commission would make a determination on the siting permit. So, in prior actions of the zoning board, we've granted conditional uses before.
Yeah, and that's changing. And that was in discussions with Ashley, the idea was most counties don't have the zoning commission issue permits. They have them conduct the hearings and make the recommendation. So this is consistent throughout.
And like the ones that we've done before in conditional use permits, the zoning board has basically approved or denied a conditional use permit or required more information type of deal. I don't know if the county commission has ever made the determination up until this point, but what my question is, like last summer, Glenda brought up some decommissioning type stuff. And I remember the discussion at the meeting was, well, we could always put that in the conditions of the conditional use permit. Typically like what the zoning board's done with the Met Tower, the PRC or whatever name you wanna use, has asked to put up, and the conditional use permit has always been approved. I don't think they've ever been denied. But when they put those up, we listed a couple extra conditions. In the siting permit, is the zoning board able to say, we're cool with this, but follow this, and this?
And we included that it explicitly says in the provisions where you're making recommendations that you can recommend to approve, to deny, or approve with modifications or conditions. So that concept is in there, and that's the full intent, that you would be able to do that. I can answer questions on decommissioning separately if you want them, but I'll just keep that separate for now. But yes, that is the intent. It's not intended to change that ability to add in conditions.
Okay, because my concern with doing away with the conditional use permit is for this, or requiring us to get a conditional use permit, is we were eliminating some protections in there. Because in here where it talks about 8.2 and 8.3 do not apply, there's some protections in there.
Yeah, and it is not intended to take away the ability to impose, modifications, conditions. I think that probably the bigger issue, so what you said it yourself, there's special use permits, there's conditional use permits, there's siting permits. They're just saying different terms for the same thing, but if you don't clarify that only one is required, you have this question, do I have to get a conditional use permit and a siting permit? That's not what anyone intended,
So in here where it talks about, I believe it's 8.2 and 8.3 do not apply.
Correct.
So does 8.2.1, 8.2.2?
No.
They don't apply either?
No.
So everything 8.2 and every decimal after it does not apply?
Right, because you have your own set of requirements in here as far as everything that has to be complied with, and then you have the ability to impose modifications or conditions just inherently as a board on any proposal that comes before you.
we will probably ask you to come back, we'll see how this goes.
Sure, happy.
And now we are going into the public period of testimonies. I guess there's a sign-up sheet.
Want me to repeat your names, please?
Uh,
All right, first person, Pierre Larson. There is a 3-minute
Sure.
time. I'll be the 1-minute warning and stop, and I'm also timer, so.
Yeah, good morning, and, what I initially want to talk about today, the chairman kind of pointed out, is not just going to be a 4 minutes project. So, it'll be short and brief, and I think that these amendments or these new proposed, things, I haven't studied very closely, but I have been kind of tired of seeing the way this is drug out, and the roadblocks have been thrown in front of it. I agree with what we've done it. And, I'm not real comfortable come up saying this because my friends and neighbors, lifelong friends and neighbors are at odds against this, but I do think that, this has been carried out too far, I think it should go through. I don't know how much closer than that, just kind of off the cuff, but that's all I'll say.
Thank you. David Fight.
Good morning. Hey, I'm at a loss before I get started. Before I get started, you guys entered information in here that wasn't available to the public. And I always thought we had to do that ahead of time. But I see the timer's still on. So I'm going to go out here. My name is David Fight. 25 years in my farmstead here in Eddy County. Eddy County zoning ordinance Article 1 says zoning is to protect public health, safety, morals, comfort, convenience, prosperity, and general welfare. 1.2.2 adds to secure safety from fire, panic, and other dangers. But PRC pushes amendments to make zoning straightforward for them, clear, consistent, no extra delays, while ignoring how the turbines wreck rural residents' health, comfort, and prosperity through noise and property evaluation. They're straightforward and mean strictly protections, letting 700-foot turbines dump constant low-frequency whoosh stump noise 24/7 on non-participating homes. No enforceable sound ordinance in the amendments, no decimal limits of property lines. If the turbines are so quiet, why not add a sound ordinance to the zoning ordinance? Because it's not about quiet, it's about jamming industrial machines close enough to ruin their sleep, health, and peace. Property valuation, turbine/property values for me and others. Noise pressure, visual blight, restricted land use. My retirement goal is a quiet farmstead, not an industrial zone. Now, non-participant landowners lose wind resources to wage effects, can't build freely, and face 20 to 30% value drops. PRC and We Wind whine about delays from